Hello, and welcome back to Authentically Shawna. I'm your host, Dr. Shawna Burke. Today, I am joined by Kim Rogers, who is known as the Worm Queen. We'll get to more on that later. She is the founder of RogersHood Apothecary and the inventor of the ParaFy kit. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Let's talk about the history of RogersHood Apothecary and how it came to be.
So, I actually come from Western medicine, and I kind of coined myself as a Western medicine refugee because I'm not in it anymore. And I actually left because of my own personal health. So, I've been doing Western medicine since 2004. And I hold two healthcare degrees, and I ran 25 healthcare colleges for DeVry. I wrote their curriculum, and then I helped develop different layers of allied health, as well as training and being a professor in the back end. So I've done a lot in my life for medicine in a professional setting. But then when it came to my own health, it started to decline so rapidly, and I couldn't get any help. So I had stage 4 endometriosis, and I had 13 surgeries and a hysterectomy when I was 29 years old. And they could not get my health under control. And I was doing all of the things that they were saying to do, surgeries and medications. And I was put into chemical menopause twice for endo, and then finally surgical menopause. And I still had surgeries after my hysterectomy, even though they say, oh, you have a hysterectomy, your endo will go away. But in fact, it didn't. In 2019, I was super sick. It hadn't worked in years, and just really debilitated. So we sold everything we owned, our home that we had just finished, and we had a piece of recreational property, and we moved out there into a travel trailer, and we decided to build a log home ourselves and figure out what was wrong with me.
And how did you go about doing that? What was your method?
So, 19, when I had my last surgery and I was told I couldn't have any more, I started looking into more herbals and holistic ways for me to be able to heal my body. And so we started looking at mushrooms, which we started growing our own, and just how holistically I could get off of my big pharma. After 22 years of being on Klonopin, I needed to get off of it. I was having terrible side effects. I wasn't going poop. So all these things were piling up, and I couldn't get anybody to, one, take me seriously. That's ultimately what it ended up being, is that when I went to my doctor and I said, I haven't gone poop in a month, and they looked at me and said, well, take some psyllium husk. And I'm like, really? That's your answer? I have toxins, like, I looked like I was 9 months pregnant, which was such a weird concept when you have endometriosis because it can cause infertility. And here I look pregnant. I'm like, this is wild. So I started researching and trying to figure out what was going on inside of my body. About a year and a half into the journey, so we're around 2021, COVID hit, all the, 2020 hit. I started to really look into other environmental toxins that could be causing me problems. And I came across a gal's video, and she said, oh my gosh, I almost unalive myself over worms. So it just made me stop and think. A few years before, I had talked to the same doctors about potentially having some sort of a weird worm thing going on because I was itchy during the full moon, and I was looking at all these alternatives that could be going on. And they were like, you live in a first world country. You don't have worms, Kim. You haven't been out of the country in a while. And I'm like, well, I mean, they can be anywhere in the world. So I bought what she was talking about on her video. It was a $30 parasite cleanse over on Amazon. And within 3 days, the pain that I had had, that was an indication it was time for me to have surgery, and not going poop. Within 3 days, I saw roundworm flukes and pinworms in the toilet. I didn't even have to dig. They were just floating on the top. I had disrupted them at the right time. They just were like, yeah, we got to evacuate. This chick's been good for me for decades, and now it's time to go. So I'm going to fast forward just a little, and then we'll come back to the story. I now know that I had parasites, have active mold in my body, and I actually had end stages of chronic Lyme. and I never needed a hysterectomy, in my opinion. So that's why this is so important to me, especially for women, because it might not just be your only root cause of your endo or PCOS, but it's definitely a big issue that is not addressed and can be something so simple as doing a cleanse to help move some of these environmental toxins that we're inundated with on a daily basis out of your body to give yourself a fighting chance. And that's why this is so important to me because I am a different person than I was 4 years ago. My skin's clear. I'm at a normal, healthy weight. I don't have those same problems that I had, and I haven't had to have a surgery since 2019. I was having surgeries every 2 years. So my whole life for 20 years revolved around what job can I have for a surgery? How much like, I'm a high achiever, and so how much can I do? How much can I provide on a daily? And so it's been a completely different change since I've started cleansing and bringing in different herbs to help me with all of it.
How much do you think was environmental versus what you came into the world with of
Both.
your okay.
Yeah, so I know what you were gonna ask.
Please, no,
My
go.
my mom, since this has all happened, my mom and I have sat down. So my dad was a colonel in nuclear missiles, and when he retired, any Air Force, any military, you get your medical records. So I've had my medical records since the day I was born. And working in the medical field, my mom's been chronically ill her whole life as well, and I've looked at her medical records. And so I really did have an idea of what was going on with her. And, you're told by Western medicine that this type of stuff can't be passed down, which is totally fiction. It's totally fiction. It's totally a lie. And I know because my mom and I now have been tested and I have the same mold as my mom. She has 11 active molds. She had sarcoid, which is considered could be a mold disease, which is a deteriorating tissue disease. And a lot of people have acute, which they die from it. She has chronic. So she was on prednisone while she was pregnant with me, which probably helped my body because she was living in mold when I was born. So we just really don't have enough research and studying from that. And so looking at it, I was doomed from the beginning. I knew I was coming from behind from the day I was born. And so it really is something that I feel was put into my body. And not a lot of people know that you can pass these environmental toxins to your child. Now, I don't think my mom has Lyme, and I do remember the day I got bit by 10 ticks and my behavior and my health changed immediately. So I now know I had pandas when I was a child, I had Lyme when I was a child, and looking back, I've been able to research that just because this is what, it's my body and then I can use that to teach other people. But the thing is that if we had known what we know today, there might have been a different outcome for like my health. I feel like with my mom giving it to me and my dad, I think my dad had cat scratch fever, which can also be transferred to your child. There's so many things that like it's just not talked about that they think it's just genetics, but in reality, it's an environmental toxin that is changing your DNA.
And in the homeopathy world, the other concept is you can not only take whatever disease was present in your family, it can transmute into something else. So that's another layer is it doesn't have to look exactly like the generations above you. Your body can do something else with that same genetic information. I love your title, the Worm Queen, but I have to ask because most people wouldn't want to call themselves the Worm Queen. How did you get that affectionate title for yourself?
Well, I didn't want to be the worm lady. Now, that's not as fun. I need a crown, right? I need a crown. If you're gonna do this, you gotta do it with a smile. I have merch around it. Literally, my merch has worms that come out with a crown on its head. Like, if you're gonna do this, and it's not even a matter of I was asked to do this. It was just thrusted. This is why I'm here in this earth. Like, this is my mission. I am totally 100% aware my pain to purpose. And I feel like when this all started, and I'll go over my viralness of what happened with this, when it started, I knew immediately. The moment I went viral in 2021, that moment, the veil was lifted for me and my entire future of what my life looked like changed in seconds. And when I say seconds, it was a million views on one of my videos in 2 hours. It was so overwhelming for TikTok. It shut my TikTok off. It said air and my phone overheated and shut off too. I had to go to an iPad that, like, literally at that time, I was so sick still that I didn't even know how, because I had a mini stroke in 21. And so I was really ill still when all of this happened. I wasn't where I'm at now with the like capabilities that I have. So I had no electronics but my phone. I had to go find my iPad to open it to make sure I didn't lose my TikTok account. And then my mother-in-law was on her way that day. Our whole family was showing up to help us start the log home build. And then I went viral. And I looked at all of them, I'm like, this is it, right? I can't help you with this log home now. Like, this is what is in front of me now. So I knew in that moment. And when I started doing more videos, because I was doing like 10 videos a day over on TikTok and they'd all carry over to Instagram. So I wasn't quite as viral on Instagram until around a year and a half ago. And I was doing all these videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, like did it. Because I can talk about this. Like, this has to do with the body. It's not some random viral video about a parasite cleanse that, like, then I can't follow up with any of this. I know one time my friend went viral over an owl video, and like, that was it, right? It was like a one and done video. What can you do with that? And she's like, "Oh, I wish I would have gone viral over something that I could talk about." And I'm like, that would be the coolest. And then I did. And I was like, oh my gosh, first off, this is missing. This is a niche that no one is talking about. How important it is to cleanse these environmental toxins out of your body, and how easy it is to catch a worm, how easy it is to catch a parasite, and how in Western medicine we've been told that it's not ever going to affect us. I started looking at other countries and I'm like, oh my God, other countries? No. Like, you can go to the pharmacy and for $7 you can get an anti-parasitic big pharma med. What? What's wrong with us? So that was it. That was it. I've done this 1,490 days as of today. I've talked about this every day for almost 1,500 days in a row. Really that important, because it's just such a simple way to find out, is your root cause a parasite? Is your root cause mold? Do you have Lyme? Do you have all three? Like, you can do 30 days, see what it feels like. And if you start to feel better, then you can keep going and doing what you're doing and add other things on to assist you. Like, it's not a one and done, but like, we are just really not aware of how these environmental toxins are affecting us. Not can, they are affecting us.
I want to ask how you came up with the ParaFy kit and how it is different from other brands that are also doing parasite cleanses.
So, because I was crowned as the worm queen and I was talking about it every day, went and I actually met with some of the other parasite cleanse companies. And I said, I'd like to know why you have natural ingredients and not disclosing what herbs and ingredients you're using. I also would like to know why you're using caramel coloring and not just keeping it a simple. Why are you adding additional ingredients in? Because at this time in my life, I wanted to know everything that was going in my body. And I was even really particular about specific mushroom capsules because they would put mycelium or rice additionally inside of their capsules. And that's not the way that I want my body to function. And so they wouldn't give me that information. And I'm sharing their products across my platforms. And I really want transparency, and they wouldn't give it to me. And so in those moments, I knew I needed to do something on my own. But I was living in a travel trailer, still building my log home, still quite ill. And how am I supposed to like create my own kit at this point? I also realized that you should be taking tinctures, not pills, and you are already going through some die-offs, so you should be adding herbs that help with candida, which I actually got really bad case of candida because the parasite cleanse I was taking caused me to have candida because it doesn't come with a binder. It doesn't come with instructions. Your heavy metals weight down physical worms and mold. They all live harmoniously together in your body. And so you should go in there and do candida, parasites, viruses. I never tested positive for Epstein-Barr virus, but I did after I did a cleanse because it dumped out of the body of the physical worm that I had in my body. And then they were coming out my skin because I didn't know you needed a binder. Western medicine, you give charcoal in an emergency room when someone has overdosed or had alcohol poisoning, not as a microdose to pull toxins out. All of these things were new to me coming from Western medicine. And I had 2 healthcare degrees and I was valedictorian over both of those degrees. So for me to say that, like, I didn't know and because I just didn't know, how does anybody know then, right? A general population patient would never know any of this. I figured out in the process of this a few months later that there are specific herbs that I should be taking, and I was pairing them with other products, and it became expensive. So it was like $250 by the time everything that I just named off was done that I was telling people, and you had to buy it from multiple companies. And some of these companies, I had sold them out. I didn't have any quality control. I didn't have any control over when they were selling out. I came across a gal on TikTok. Linktree wasn't an option back in those days. Like 4 years ago, Linktree wasn't a thing. And so she offered to build me a website. And I said, I can't pay you. I literally was on governmental assistance. I had taken me and my husband down to nothing. She's like, no problem. I'll do it for the community. And I said, amazing. If I ever start a business, let's talk and we can partner up. Within like a week, I was like, let's start a business. Do you have space? And RogersHood began. And I have been looking at multiple different types of kits in that time frame. I realized that we needed a kit. You need instructions. You need to have 3 tinctures and a binder. It needs to be parasites, candida, viruses, worms, and heavy metals in order for you to have a good cleanse. And you need to have an herb in there that breaks the biofilm because they live in a hard shell. And so if you can deliver a synergistic cleanse, you can do so many things. And it's just a matter of each individual ailment that you have, finding that herb frequency and going in and shattering that ailment. Like an opera singer singing to break the glass because the frequency of their voice is the same as the glass. You do the same thing when you're processing herbs. I realized that this was something that needed to be out in the world. So RogersHood was created on December 13th of 2021. So we'll be 4 years old here soon. And within an hour, we sold 500 kits.
I also want to ask because you have an additional product that most companies don't have as well, which is your fulvic foot soak. Could you talk more about that? Because I think that's also a really important aspect that most other companies aren't addressing as well.
Yeah. So in October of 2021, I realized that you could absorb things in your skin. Again, coming from Western medicine, you don't really think about those things. You just kind of say, this is the way it is. And so I did a soak. I put my feet in fulvic, and within 15 minutes, worms swam out of my feet. And I have it on video. And I went viral. And I was like, okay, so we have to put fulvic in with this as an additional cleansing way and to assist with die-offs. I learned that you absorb 2 cups of water every 15 minutes and everything in it. So it immediately is absorbed into your body through your feet, or if you're doing a bath, and it makes them uncomfortable and they run out, they swim out as fast as possible out of the bottom of your pores of your feet, which you have up to 125,000 pores in the bottom of each of your feet. And it's a lot easier way to remove heavy metals out of your body instantly because fulvic helps pull heavy metals out. So it's just an additional way to get things like environmental toxins out of your body. And I just love fulvic. Fulvic makes your skin soft. It helps with overall skin health. And internal health. Fulvic is just a great mineral that helps bind too.
You had mentioned this, but I wanted to make sure that people understood because I think this is a new concept for most people that parasites, mold, yeast, heavy metals, they all work together in the body. And I saw on your Instagram there was this little chart where everything went in a circle. Could you tell us the circle and how those concepts are all connected?
Well, they live in a biofilm, so it's a hardened shell, like an egg, and it's protected. They're protected inside by that biofilm. So, one, that's why it's very difficult to test for all of these environmental toxins because they're evaders and they can live inside that shell. So, unless you're breaking that shell and exposing them, it's very difficult. You're just getting like the outside stragglers that haven't built their home yet, basically. So, if you don't bring something in that breaks them up. And they also live together, again, in that shell. But parasites can hold 6 to 8 times their weight in heavy metals, spores, viruses, bacteria, other worms, and yeast. And candida is an overgrowth of yeast, which turns into a parasite. And the definition of a parasite is anything that feeds off a host or an unwanted dinner guest. So when it's feeding off of you, it's literally living inside of you. And so what you're trying to do is break it down and move it out. And so that's really what you're doing with all of the environmental toxins that are being stored in your body. They do all live together. Usually, if you have Lyme, you have something like parasites and mold as co-infections. Co-infections meaning they all hang out and like prop each other up. They're a team.
So you've done a lot of parasite cleanses now at this point. What do you do to help maintain your overall wellness? So are you continuing to do parasite cleanses and how often? What's your maintenance protocol?
So I do 3 to 4 main 30-day cleanses
A year.
a year. Yeah. And then I usually will do 5 to 7 days between each one of those. Usually it's when I am traveling because if I eat questionably, and questionably to me is I don't eat raw produce out. I don't drink tap water. I really am careful about putting ice because it's just tap water that they've frozen. And I don't eat salmon or fish anymore, and I never eat my meat raw. And I've cut pork completely out. Pork is just really riddled with parasites because of the type of animal that a pig is. I'm really conscientious, but if I am out and I do happen to have any of the things that I'm really conscientious not to eat, then I do mini cleanses in between as a proactive step to not have them want to stay in me. Anytime you make your body inhospitable, there is science behind all of it, and other countries are very aware that this is an issue. They put pumpkin seeds on their salads because pumpkin seeds are anti-parasitic, and when you eat them inside of your body, it's making them say, stay away. Right? If you're eating a salad with pumpkin seeds, there's a possibility that that lettuce has parasites on it. But if you're proactive and you add pumpkin seeds, when it gets into your stomach acid, it's going to tell them to leave. It's not a main cleanse, but it is a way for you to have a little bit more peace of mind. That's why they bring in specific foods to have with other foods.
Do you do pumpkin seeds all the time? Is that a part of your daily diet?
Usually I'll do them a couple of times a week. Yeah, I like pumpkin seeds. I think they taste yummy. But if I can't, then I just take my drops. I just take them right before as a digestive aid to again make my body inhospitable so that if they do happen to hit a frequency where it's not happy for them, they're just not going to want to embed into my body.
What other modalities are you doing besides parasite cleanses?
I do a lot of modalities. I actually have my entire like podcast is based on showing modalities, but hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy has really been transformative for my health because it snuffs out mold and Lyme in your body and it gives you up to 600 times more oxygen to pump into your cells. I also drink a very hyper oxygenated water called Aphora, and that helps keep my cells in a detox state, pushing things out so that it's hydrating my cells, yet keeping things from going into my cells. Because that's really the whole purpose of this, that when you do vibration or you do frequency is that you don't want something to settle inside of your cell. You want it to get pushed out. And when you have mold and you have candida, literally they're in the cells and they're trying to snuff the cells out. And so you're trying to be conscientious about making sure that you keep all of that moving. And that's why you do frequencies and, you do vibration. So I do vibration plate a couple of times a week. I do my hyperbaric chamber oxygen, which I actually have an HBOT in my office. I do sauna, and I feel like a very underutilized modality that I use is cold. Cold is so good. I know it's like a 50-50 right now in the female's health, but like for me personally, I do much better in cold than I do hot. And maybe that's because I have pans and pandas. So that might be it because I have swelling. And so it just helps with my inflammation, which helps push out the mucus in my body.
And by cold, are you getting in a cryo chamber? Are you jumping in a cold bath? What's your version of cold?
I like cold plunging, that's my favorite, but if I don't have the opportunity, then I'll go into a cryo for 3 minutes. I like the cryo because it's only 3 minutes and you don't have to get all wet, you can go in your clothes, but for me, I can sit for 15 minutes in a cold plunge, no problem. I know. I'm a beast when it comes to cold. Everybody makes fun of me.
Good. Let's talk about your podcast. I know you co-host it with your best friend. What was your impetus for starting a podcast, and what do you love to talk about on your podcast?
I started it because I only get seconds on social media. And when you're on TikTok, my viewers are around 7 to 15 seconds. And on Instagram, they're around 30 seconds. And then it's a lot of work, honestly, to do content when it's only seconds long. You usually spend around 30 to 40 minutes on one 15-second video. And it can be depending on how, and then you gotta cram it all in, and this is a lot. It's a lot to try and have a movement like this. It's a lot to really try and make some medical reform. It's the natural progression as well of, like, the fact that I like to talk, and I have a lot to say, and I have a lot of knowledge to give the world until it's my time to go. I wanna give as much knowledge for people to be their own patient advocate or their own sovereignty over their own health, which is a huge thing that has somewhat been taken away from us. And that is really unacceptable to me. I don't feel like that's something that we should continue to be okay with. And so it's hard when one, you're taken down on the platforms a lot, which I am. One of my platforms, so TikTok, I used to get 40 to 50 million views, and now I'm lucky if I get a million over there a month. And Instagram, I went from 20 million to 3 million because, it's just the natural progression of when you become really loud and big tech doesn't like it. I feel like I have a lot of people around me that can share their knowledge as well, and I wanna give them a platform. I want other people to know what it looks like to get IVs at home, what it looks like to do HBOT, what it looks like to cold plunge, how you can educate yourself to walk in and feel comfortable at these facilities and ask for all of these things because you were able to watch it before you went and tried it. And it'll just give you that confidence when you are in a medical awakening to fully understand what the difference is and how those differences and these modalities can completely change the trajectory of your health. And so it's really important to me to be able to spotlight that and also bring in experts. Like I did therapeutic plasma exchange at the beginning of this year, and I sat and did it while podcasting with my doctors so that they could give their expertise while the person is watching me doing it. So there isn't a fear around it. And in fact, they can go and help themselves and provide knowledge to their doctors that might not know either. And I feel like few years ago when I was going very viral, I realized that people were going to their doctors and saying, I want a ParaFy parasite cleanse. And then the doctors were coming to me behind the scenes asking for information to give to them, to give to their patients. And I thought, wow, like I could do even more of that because as I've been on this journey, I've done things that are very unorthodox when it comes to frequencies and subliminal messages and red light. Like red light is my jam. I've been doing red light for 5 years now. I did it just for my face, and then instinctually I would like put it because I have carpal tunnel. I would put it on my hands and gua sha and moving the lymph and showing people what this looks like. And then a lot of people ask what I do. And so I'm like, well, let's just show them. I hired my best friend to do a podcast with me because she's actually a music producer, her and her husband, and they produce our podcast. She actually wrote for Kanye West and she wrote the song Famous by Lil Wayne that has 1 billion downloads. She's already a producer. So I'm like, well, let's pivot you from music to podcasts. We travel around and we celebrate what people are doing and we go into their facility. And we were just in a fora a couple of months ago and we got to show fora water to people and what it looks like behind the scenes to give them some transparency, to have an understanding of like what it looks like to slowly pivot yourself over to more holistic and try and heal your body.
If someone has never known how to be their own health advocate, this is their first time hearing about this, what do you recommend as a first step to advocating for yourself?
Well, I feel like the first step is I have some free ebooks in my profile to download those. They're around 10, some are 10 pages, some of them are 60 pages. They're free. Just start to educate yourself on the words. I know people say don't Google stuff, but listen, Google's great, man. ChatGPT, you can type in, how do I do this? And it'll tell you now. And so it's really just understanding the words and understanding cleansing is a huge part of cleaning your soil and making sure that your water is filtered. So, if you look at yourself as a house and you're starting to rebuild and remodel your home, where do you start? Well, you start at the soil and build your foundation and then build your walls and build your roof. And in order to do that, you got to know, okay, well, where do I clean my soil? Where do I get a good solid foundation going? Cleanse. Help your body, help your organs to push out heavy metals and mold spores and parasites. And also have an understanding that these things are around us and they're not something we can avoid, but we can be proactive and not have them make us chronically ill. I believe this is a huge miss in the wellness community, all of the wellness community. No one's talking about cleaning your soil. No one's talking about giving your organs a little extra oomph to be able to process out at some point these environmental toxins that are coming from the sky. Our salmon, that's a big one. I make fun of it all day because it's pink and you can see the worms, but all fish have worms. All fish. At some point, you got to pause and be like, well, should I just cook it or should I eat this raw? Is this what's making me sick? That's sovereignty. Sovereignty is where you get to make decisions for yourself and not be necessarily told by outside sources what you can and can't do.
I want to say that those books are available also on your website. So if you go on your website, there's a whole section of free books that she has. Please check that out as a resource. There's a great one about everything we were talking about, but what is detoxing? What does that mean? She talks about all the different levels and layers of detox. So it's a fantastic resource. Thank you so much for
Thanks.
providing that for everyone.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
there
we got
anything that,
more coming. We have
oh,
more.
good.
We're gonna do mold because I had to pivot since my mornings consist of running a production facility in Jonesboro since we make our own products. We have a 10,000 square foot manufacturing facility in one block. And then we actually just decided to keep our 4,000 square foot manufacturing facility to help with bagging stuff. So we actually are bringing in equipment to assist with orders more so that we keep control over all of what we're doing because I don't want to ever give it to anybody so that I know without a shadow of a doubt. And so I've actually been able to start working on a mold ebook because I had mold poisoning while all this was going on. I also had mold poisoning at a high level. And so I want to get that out. And then for Christmas, we're doing a meat protein cookbook. Right now, the cookbook that we have that's free is all just based on like not eating meat, and that was what we said at the beginning of all of this was that you shouldn't have meat, you shouldn't have sugar, you shouldn't have alcohol, you shouldn't have carbs. But over the last few years, I've done a lot of studying and I found that if you are a meat eater, you should be eating clean, grass-fed, grass-finished meat while cleansing to give your body a little extra assistance. And so we're working on that, and that will be out at the end of the year. So we're excited about that. And then just providing the ebooks for free will always be my way.
I so appreciate that as someone who also likes to see what other people's thoughts are and other people's research. It's so great to say, okay, I have found this person who's now validating everything that I found. So thank you so much for making that available to the
You're
public.
welcome.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add to our conversation that I haven't asked?
I think that people just need to know the knowledge. I I am very smart, but I didn't know these things. I didn't know how much having a parasite and mold and end stages of chronic Lyme was really taking me out. When we went to our property in 2019, we were saying goodbye to me. I mean, my husband and I grieved it. We knew that I wasn't going to make it through. I set him up so that he wouldn't have a mortgage and he wouldn't have debt. And when you get to that point, because you got nowhere to go, it's very lonely. Being chronically ill is lonely. It's also very expensive. And that's why I made my kit so inexpensive. And that's why I give everything for free other than my kit. And it's because it is expensive. And I know personally what it looked like for 20 years. It took a toll on my life. And so I just feel like if I can give just that little bit back to people, the whole outlook of how you feel chronically ill can change because there's validation. And when there's validation, your body knows and it will start to respond to the validation, to you going, oh, that one issue is gone because I had a worm. And now I can do this 3 to 4 times a year or more if I want to. And I can choose to do it. It's not something I have to go to the doctor for, or I need someone else to help me with, or I need a lecture. All of those things, it really does make a difference. And I also listened to my community and I created a kit that you can take prior to the ParaFy kit. It's called the Lymph Kit. It has lime herbs in it, so it's a lime cleanse as well as opening up your pathways. And you can take that 2 weeks prior to the ParaFy kit. You can take it while on the ParaFy kit. It has lion's mane in it, so it's helping boost the neurons that are misfiring in your brain. Turkey tail helps break down scar tissue. It helps boost your immune system. So there are so many herbs out there that people just don't know about because it's just not something that we have dealt with over the last 101 years. I mean, our medical system's changed. And so 101 years ago, these were all things people would be like, why are you making a big deal about it, Kim? And it's because that was the norm back then.
I thought of one more question that I wanted to ask. So many of, I'm going to say symptoms of what people have are from all of these things that we were just talking about: mold, yeast, parasites, heavy metals. What are some of the common symptoms that you hear where you go, you might want to think about doing something in this cleansing realm because your symptoms, what you had said earlier, was they might not be quote unquote caused by these, these other things aren't helping you out.
Right. Yeah. And I think at this point, I think the words of, I think you should do it, it really should be like what other countries do. It's mandatory in other countries to be able to participate in specific school activities or sports if you haven't dewormed twice a year. And pinworms are lice of the butt. Once you get them, everyone in your house gets them. We all share the same microbiome. So if you have something going on, your spouse has it, your kids have it, you should all be cleansing. You have pets, 100% of pet owners. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You have parasites. They're out there licking their butt. They're eating other dogs' poop. They're on the ground, which is where a lot of parasites are. So you're letting them live and lick you and lay in bed with you. We deworm them. We think about our pets all the time. We should really be considering what they're giving to us as well and do it together. Usually, people that grind their teeth, specifically at night, have a parasite. It's because they've hijacked our nervous system and they absorb magnesium and calcium. They thrive on that. And so because of that, that's part of your nervous system to help calm it down. And when that is not existent, you're grinding, your body's like, oh, like it can't gain control over the nervous system. And so it's just keeping you in fight or flight. The other thing that is a big issue when you have parasites is they're nocturnal creatures. If your insomnia or if you're eating after 7 p.m., specifically sugar and salt, that's their breakfast. That's when they're awake now. They're keeping you awake, wanting to have breakfast and wanting to eat the way they want to eat. I've said in the past that parasites control and mold brainwashes. They're telling you your body instinctually does not want to eat that sugar. They do. They want you to feed them so that they are active and they're controlling. If you have insomnia, I had insomnia most of my life and I don't anymore. At like 11 o'clock, I'm like, I got to go to bed. Before, it would be days I would be awake. Days.
The other one that I also hear commonly is brain fog. not
Yeah,
sure if you heard that as well, is I just don't feel clear. I feel like I'm having a hard time processing what's going on, and people do a parasite cleanse and then they go, "My brain turned back on."
totally. Yeah, because they've disrupted the brain gut connection, which is where your brain fog it comes from. Is really your gut. Your gut is your brain, first brain. But that's why I added the lymph kit because you bring in that lion's mane, and not only does just the ParaFy kit help with the brain fog, but now you added an extra layer of oomph. Now people are like, just lion's mane will help clear out some of the fog. And then when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I have parasite cleanse and my brain fog is still there, then you bring something in like happened to me, which I was living in mold and I brought in the moldies. And so now I know that like sometimes mold can break free and you're like battling a colonization inside of your body that people just because you can't see inside, they just kind of, oh, well, I can't see it. If you cut yourself in half and you looked at yourself internally, mold looks like what's on the wall. That's what's in your body. And parasites are wiggling. Like, yeah,
They're there.
they're there, man. They're there. And if they're not, go watch my account because you're going to see them and be like, that's what it looks like. And you're like, yes,
Yeah, we all have them. We are breathing creatures. We have creatures. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge. People can find you on your website, which I will link, on your Instagram, and I will also put a link to your podcast. Is there anything that I'm forgetting about ways for people to connect with you?
No, that sounds great.
You've been listening to Authentically Shawna with Dr. Shawna Burke. The information contained in this podcast is provided for information purposes only. You're listening to Authentically Shawna with Dr. Shawna Burke. The information contained in this podcast is provided for information purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products or techniques referenced in this podcast, consult your healthcare provider. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.